Welcome back to the EPRS Chronicles for our third and final episode in our Latin America series. In episode 2, we examined the relationship between China and Latin America in more detail. And in this final episode, we will look at critical raw materials coming for Latin America and their significance for the EU. For this, I am joined by Ángelos Dilvorias, who is a policy analyst in the External Policies Unit of the EPRS. Hello again, Ángel.
Hello, Kelly.
Let's get right into it. Tell us why critical raw materials from Latin America are important to the EU. Why is the EU turning to Latin America for critical raw materials?
Well, the EU, just like China, is actually extracting critical raw materials at only a tiny fraction of what it eventually consumes. The biggest proportion is imported. However, apart from extracting the critical raw materials, there is also processing and refining. And here, contrary to China, we don't have a significant processing and refining capacity yet. In the last few years, China has concentrated 2/3 of the processing and refining capacity for critical raw materials. As a result, over the last few years, we have been importing most of our critical raw materials, approximately 3/4 from China. Now, this is a situation now. We know that until the end of a decade, we will need approximately 80 times more lithium, for example. And until the end of 2050, we will need, as things stand, 60 more times lithium. So we have a dilemma. Do we keep sourcing everything from China, or do we try to diversify? And this is what we're actually doing by turning towards Latin America.
And where does China get its lithium?
So, as mentioned previously, China gets its lithium from China, up to 10%, but its biggest part is imported from 3 countries, which are known as the Lithium Triangle. So they're all situated in Latin America. It's Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia. So until now, they have been turned there and extracting the biggest part over there. And this is what we're also intending to do now. We intend on capitalizing on the relations that we already have, on the fact that we are close with Latin America, and on the fact that they have, of course, the biggest proven reserves of lithium, for example.
Is it possible that we are coming a little late in the game, especially given the relationship between China and Latin America?
Yes, we are coming a bit. Just to give an example, China already had a lithium strategy back in 2015. And contrary to the EU, which is 27 member states, China is one bloc moving fast with a whole different firepower. As a result, in lithium, for example, China has invested 3 times as much as we have. But this is exactly the reason why this year we have adopted significant strategies like the Critical Raw Materials Act or the Latin America strategy that Mark mentioned before.
How is Europe's approach to buying critical raw materials from Latin America different to that of China?
We come with a different proposition, a more qualitative proposition. Until now, up to a point, foreign countries that have gone and extracted lithium over there, they did it without giving too much significance, let's say, to environmental consideration, without consulting previously with the local native communities. So this has resulted in a degradation of the environment. This has resulted in local communities and native communities being displaced in those countries. And another significant point is that those countries, they actually extract the lithium or the critical raw materials, they bring it back and they process and refine it there. So the added value is back in the country. Now, what we thought in the EU, and this has been expressed both by individual member states, such as Germany, for example, or by the EU institutions through our communications and strategies, is that we would consult previously with the local communities and native communities. We would apply higher standards for the environment. And most importantly, we would actually try to create added value on the ground in collaboration with the local communities so as to create more employment on the ground and so as to get them to be a part of the process and be able to continue afterwards and grow their own industry.
And does this approach appeal to our partners in Latin America?
It should. For the moment, it's theoretical, and at the end of the day, the consideration of who is cheaper might prevail. However, Latin America, just like many other countries, has been impacted by climate change. An example is the droughts that have hit Argentina in the last 3 years due to an extended La Niña phenomenon, or tropical storms that batter other countries. So I guess the Latin America would care about a process that does less damage to the environment. It should care more about a process that takes into account local and native communities, and it definitely should take into account and consider a process which actually creates more employment and creates more added value on the spot.
And turning now towards what this would mean for us at home, would a partnership with Latin America on critical raw materials be enough to assure Europe's green transition?
Up to a point, yes. We need to remember that lithium is an important point, and copper is also an important point, which is currently extracted in Latin America. And there are discussions about Latin American countries expanding going forward in other critical raw materials and rare earth elements, which are necessary. They wouldn't cover all our needs, because we need to remember that we are in competition with other countries, North America or China, Russia, etc. And we also need to take into consideration that not everything that we need for the green transition is in Latin America. We need to continue. But at the same time, just as the Critical Raw Materials Act that was voted, this is only a part of our strategy, of the EU strategy, diversifying its sources so as to avoid being over-reliant to a single partner, just like we were to Russia before with gas, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, is an important part of our strategy. Another important element is actually to recycle, because there are studies that estimate that a big portion of what we currently need, could be met by recycling the current critical raw materials that we have. And finally, the strategies that we have implemented also give importance to local mining, extracting, processing. So there are incentives given to various member states to do that at home. So all those three should take us the extra mile and meet our needs.
Thank you very much, Angele.
Thank you, Kelly.
This concludes our series on Latin America. To see more chronicles, you can subscribe to the EPRS YouTube channel and stay up to date with the most recent videos.